Yeah.
Video. You want to look at it that way, I guess. Zobacz, jak one fajnie krążą.
Yeah.
To buy a ticket to go on?
Yes.
Yeah, just head to the machine.
Thank you. Go. Yeah, for one, please. That's awesome.
Have you visited the monument before?
Not from a long time ago. 50 years ago or something.
Alright, so if you remember a lot of stairs,
Yeah.
they are still here.
Yeah.
But you've got 3 levels of exhibition that you can explore,
Yeah.
and then the crown at the top. That's your
It's
map
awesome.
over here. Don't know how to use a stapler.
That's awesome.
That's it.
Thanks a lot.
Over with Barbara. So just keep to your right hand side on the stairs whenever you need to pass anybody
Right.
from the
Thank you.
office as well. Enjoy. Yes, that's what.
Możemy.
You jump onto one of these. Yeah, thank you. They're totally different.
The country is grieving. As rival claims battle for power, King Edward I of England steps in. He chooses a new king, John, but Edward demands beyond.
最后是给我们死的。 对，这样才会觉得。Yeah, no, I agree.
ik vond dat is
Nee, dat is niet waar.
dit is oh en dit.
Let's go. There's three spots, man. If you can get. Hey, man.
Jetzt geht's los, nehmen wir mal das Gehörbereich. Drück auf eure Sprache. Tobi.
Dahinter sind noch mehr.
Yeah, no, so true. Yeah. So what do you think about going to carry on or do you want? Oh boy. You try to walk up? Do you want to think about it?
Welcome to the National Wallace Monument. If you can understand what I'm saying and would like to hear about William Wallace and the Battle of Stirling Bridge, and indeed why we're at war with the English, you'd like to make your way to the grass at the side. Make your way up onto the little hill. Thanks very much for joining me. Rain while we're here, but you never know. If you need to dash away, don't feel embarrassed. It's quite alright, I'm not taking it personally. Very nice for you to spend some time with me though. The Battle of Stirling Bridge took place at the foot of this hill. That was when William Wallace led us, the Scottish army, down this hill to face the might of the English army, led by John de Wren. He was the Earl of Surrey. And that took place on the 11th day of September in the year of our Lord 1297. The battle took place on this side of the river, which is the north shore, and that's very important to the outcome of the battle. And despite the Scots being greatly outnumbered, Scotland won!
Yeah!
We didn't fight for gold, we didn't fight for glory, we fought for
Freedom!
everyone comes. And we were trying to free ourselves from the brutal rule of an English king whose name was Edward I. We called him Longshanks because, like myself, he had a pair of long shanks. So that was Longshanks. And what happened was he took advantage of the unexpected death of our own Scottish king. And he was Alexander III. Now, he was a good king who ruled Scotland for almost 40 years. Under his rule, Scotland was peace. He was very good friends, though, with Edward of England. And in fact, he married Edward's sister. So our Queen Margaret was the King of England's sister. So no big surprise, the two countries made a well for a while. And it starts to go wrong when she dies. It's a sad story because she's just a young woman when she dies. Then her sons die, they're just boys. And the daughter, I'm sure you've got the hang of this, she dies too. So when Alexander dies in an accident, I'll tell you about in a moment, he was the first king of this country for many a year to die without a male heir. And that's important, ladies, isn't it? Very important. No male heir was something terrible back then. Guess what? Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. Anyway, Alexander fell off his horse, and I know that never sounds very dramatic. I should explain, his horse was on top of a cliff at the time. In the middle of the night, during a terrible storm, thunderbolts, lightning, very, very frightening thing it was. And he falls and breaks his neck on the rocks on the shore, breaks his neck, and his body's found the next day 1 mile from home. 1 mile from being safely tucked up in his bed at Kinghorn Castle in Fife, and instead they find him with his neck broken. And he's heading home in the storm against all advice from his nobles because he was keen to get home to his new young French countess of a wife who was waiting for him there. I understand it was her birthday the next day. That's why he's so keen and ignored all the advice not to sit out that night. He was being ruled by his heart, gentlemen, wasn't he? We've all been there, haven't we? Eh? It's where we make our worst mistakes, isn't it? And maybe our best ones, who knows? Anyway, his body's found the next day. As I said, no male heir. Hadn't had for many a year. His only surviving year was his granddaughter, just a wee girl, she was only 3 years old at the time, and she was Margaret, the Maid of Norway. Can you guess where she was? She wasn't here, she was in Norway, yeah, thanks. Not a trick question. You'll not get trick questions from me. No, you'll not get trick questions from me. I'm not smart enough for a start and I wouldn't do it, it's not nice. So she was in Norway. Now, it's such a big deal of not being a male heir. Our nobles met with Edward of England and King Eric of Norway. And they decided the best thing for Scotland is to bring the wee girl here. Right? She can be looked after till she's old enough and then she'll be crowned Queen of Scots. She was 3 when Alexander dies. When she's about 8, they put her on a boat to bring her to Scotland. And there's not a good way of breaking this news to you, but she dies too, okay? It's terrible, isn't it? This wee girl takes ill on the journey and dies when the ship's tied up in the harbour at Orkney. Doesn't even make it to the mainland. And while this is terribly sad, we have been waiting for years for her to come, haven't we? It's dangerous not to have someone on the throne. Scotland needs a king fast. So now the nobles decide any noblemen who could trace their bloodline back to King David I, they could lay claim to Scotland, and 13 legitimate claimants came forward. So they stopped the fighting that's going on between the nobles and their wisdom and invited the King of England to come and determine the rightful King of Scotland. How does that sound? I know it sounds a bit mad, but our nobles thought it was a good idea. They thought because the English king had been their old king's friend and brother-in-law, surely he would be fair, wouldn't he? Aye, right. He just chooses the weakest one, doesn't he? John Balliol. Well, everyone knew he was the weakest, and of course that's why he was chosen. I think Edward wanted a weak king in Scotland, somebody that would do as they were told. I think he thought Balliol would maybe just hand over Scotland's land and wealth to him like this, on a silver platter. But here Balliol, he turns out not to be quite as weak as Edward's hoping. In fact, Balliol begins to revive Scotland's Old Alliance. I don't know, have you heard of that, the Old Alliance? Between the Scots and thank you, the French, an educated crowd, thank you. Now, forgive me if I get this bit wrong, right? The English king never liked the French, did he? Didn't like them. Don't ask me. Didn't like them. Don't ask me why. I don't know. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with the French in my book. But he comes along, Edward, and he commands our king to raise a Scottish army to fight for England against the French. And Balliol says, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it." Edward doesn't like to be refused. Oh no. So to teach the Scots a lesson, he sends his army north and attacks the Scots and slaughters 8,000 Scots. 8,000 now, let's be clear about this. This does not happen in a big battle like the one that happens down here in 1297. There is no battle. It's a massacre of innocent people on the streets of Berwick and the surrounding areas. The residents there. It's a bloodbath. Still the worst atrocity committed on these islands to the present day. In response, Balliol does now raise a Scottish army, right enough, aye. Not to fight the French, to fight the English. However, as is all too common in our history, we are defeated. Soundly beaten at Dunbar, and after that, I'm sure you can guess, Balliol, he's hooked, exiled, imprisoned. What I didn't expect was 2,000 of our own nobles and clergy would bow, surrender, and pledge allegiance to Edward, the King of England. Our own people doing that. And Now, Edward I, Longshanks, the Hammer of the Scots, well, I have plenty of names I could call him. He sent English soldiers and magistrates to run every town and village right throughout the whole of Scotland to enforce English law on the Scottish people and to pay English taxes too. Is that fair?
No!
So much better if you say it than me, thank you. Now, this isn't getting political, it's just to explain what Scotland was like up to about a year before the Battle of Stirling Bridge. But in that year, somebody comes along and turns Scotland's fortunes round. Oh, that's a big enough clue, is it? A year before the Battle of Stirling Bridge, no one had heard of William Wallace, and believe me, it seems like everyone has heard of him now. William was born in a wee village in the west of Scotland. It's called Elderslie, and it's still there. But he was a second son. Now that means he would grow up knowing he was unlikely to inherit anything. Like land or money is going to go to his big brother, not to him. And William was clever, educated, studying to become a priest. William Wallace never intended to be a warrior, a freedom fighter, a terrorist. He was going to be a priest. And now, I know that surprises a lot of people that come here. I know it does. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I'm not sure he would have been a very good priest. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, his heart's in the right place, but come on. He's a man with a quick and violent temper, wasn't he? I wouldn't dare say that to his face either. He was always in trouble for fighting English soldiers persecuting his fellow countrymen. And he seemed to go out of his way to make a nuisance of himself to the English, to the point that Edward declares William Wallace outlaw. Wants him arrested, and they knew he was hiding out at his father-in-law's house in Lanark. So they sent the sheriff of Lanark and his soldiers along the house, and they set the house on fire. Right? Because if William's in there, he'll come out, won't he? We can arrest him. That was the plan. But William wasn't there that day. He wasn't there. He was attending to other matters that day. His wife, Marion, she was in the house. And she ran. But Heselrigg, that was the name of the sheriff, seized this and ordered his soldiers that were grabbed and had her thrown back into the burning house. It's horrible, isn't it? She dies in the fire. When William hears this news, you can imagine, he is in a rage. He gathers 30 men, probably everyone he could find, marches up to the English garrison at Lanark and boards up the English soldiers in their own barracks. You know what's coming, don't you? He sets them on fire. Some of the soldiers escape, but he's not bothered about them, is he? He's after one man. Heselrigg, that sheriff, he hunts him down, drags him to the centre of town, and in front of the good people of Lanark assembled there, William Wallace kills him. He does, that's a fact. William Wallace kills William Heselrigg, the sheriff of Lanark. But we know why, don't we? Don't we? But now to the English, William Wallace is just a murdering, treacherous Scot. Well, of course, they're the worst kind of Scots you can find, aren't they? The murderous, treacherous ones and the ones that carry axes about have nothing to do with them. They're a bad lot. See, here's where I've got a problem, if you like, a dilemma, I suppose. Because to us Scots, William Wallace is a hero, isn't he? I'm not that bright, right? How can he be a murderer, a hero, and a traitor all at the same time? Unless I'm missing something, just depends which side you're on, doesn't it? Well, that must be a common thing. That must happen all the time. Anyway, more and more people joined William Wallace in the fight to free Scotland from English rule. And he wasn't the only one that people followed. No, in the far north, they followed Andrew de Moray. He was an important man. One of the last loyal nobles of Scotland. He gathered an army, marched them to Dundee, where Scrymgeour, well, he was the man in the east that people followed. Scrymgeour and his men had surrounded Dundee, right, trying to win it back from English control. And I marched with William Wallace and his men to join in the siege of Dundee, but when we got there, news arrived, the English king, he'd already sent his army north under the command of the Earl of Surrey to put an end to this Scottish rebellion. Now Wallace and de Moray confer, and they agree, let's leave Scrymgeour and his men at Dundee, they've got the siege well in hand. Why not join forces together and make up a big army? Aye? And they marched us here. to the Abbey Craig, this hill in Stirling. Here's where we prepare to face the English in a mighty plan for our freedom. But why did we come here? Why here? Well, through the trees you'll see Stirling Castle, right? The English had taken the castle. So from this high ground, the vantage point, we could see everything our enemy was doing. And that's a big advantage, isn't it? Aye. The downside was we could see how many of them were there. I'd never seen that number of people in the same place in my life. Listen, the English army, they were a fearsome sight. William Wallace took one look at us, going a ragtag band of an army and them, well-trained, fighting soldiers. He knew we were going to be afraid, so he comes to say, don't worry, I know we're outnumbered, but I've got a plan. Here's what we need to do. When the English cross the bridge on this side of the river, don't get excited, run down and trying to get into a fight straight away. No, hold your position here on the hill until I give you the order to charge. And that's what we did, we just waited. From here we could see the English soldiers standing across the bridge. I hope they come two abreast of it, just a wee narrow bridge. But for some reason, well, they all started marching back again. We had no idea what was going on. We cheered. Cheerio, cheerio, cheerio. It was only after the band had found out they were so they slept in it. The poor old chap was having a long ride. And then he said he needed his breakfast before he'd come and slaughter any Scots that day. A second time they line up, this time to their surprise, they signed over monks. Holy men marched into the camp. And they demanded to speak to William Wallace. Well, they offered him land, titles, and of course, money. Just to withdraw us from the field of battle. William Wallace, he was disgusted by them and their bribery. This is what he said to them. He said, listen, I didn't come here to talk or to be bought. I came here to free this country. And although we're outnumbered, we'd all rather die on our feet than live a moment longer on our knees. We sent them all back. So for the third time that day, we waited as the English lined up behind the crossing. Well, this time it took a while. My guess, about 2,000 English soldiers came over. Oh, and a couple of hundred heavy horses as well. You see the size of their army. The same number again on the far side of the bridge, maybe more. Still getting into position, lining up ready to cross the bridge, but by now we can see William's plan might work. Well, he'd explained to us beforehand, you see. He told us he believed the English soldiers with all their weapons and their armour, and their heavy horse. I thought a heavy horse is a fat horse. It's not, it's got armour on it, right? And he says, listen, they'll all be useless anyway, and they'll go to the marshland that's on this side of the river. Oh, don't worry, he says, they'll hardly be able to move. Never mind charge the spear, maybe it's going to position to close off the loop in the river there. That's why he told us to hold. And we could see for ourselves, when the English soldiers came over, they were flopping about, floundering in the causeway of the river. And when they finally scrambled up into this side, the north shore, the marshland, well, right enough, they could hardly keep their feet. But only when William saw the English soldiers on this side were well and truly stuck in the mud, and their slow advance away from the bridge was stopping the ones on the far side from advancing any further and coming off of the bridge. Only then did they give us the order to charge, and we ran down this hillside, ripping into the English ranks with our claymores and our axes. Listen, I wish you'd all been there to see it. Oh, aye, it was a bonny, bonny sight. Now, the ferocity of our attack took the English by surprise, and they turned and fled for their lives, trying to get back over the bridge again. But I've told you, haven't I? Their army's so big, they're still advancing onto the bridge, so the bridge is blocked. The spearmen, they've closed the loop in the river. Where's left now for the soldiers to run? They want to cross, don't they? So they run to the river. Hundreds of their soldiers fell into the river and drowned. Dragged down by the weight of their own armour. Oh, and their heavy horse too. Now some of the horse crashed into the wooden bridge. You could hear it creak and groan like it might give way. William Wallace, I told you, he's a clever man. Sends archers down now, have them fire burning arrows in the wooden bridge, and it's soon ablaze. Before long it's completely destroyed, so now the English on this side, well, they're trapped. And on the far side, Doesn't matter now how many of them are there, does it? The bridge is gone. There's no way for them to cross and help their comrades in arms. The English that were here, now they fought bravely, they did, but most of them died. Victory was ours that day because we were fighting for our country, something we believed was ours by right and had been unjustly taken from us. See, I do think that makes a difference. I think people fighting for their country are prepared to fight longer and harder than those that are trying to take it from them. But we'll find out, won't we? And there's been a terrible price paid already. Too many dead Scotsmen down there because of the battle. The Murray. Oh, he's been badly winded. I don't see him lasting much longer. And the English king, Edward, Longshanks. This will not stop him. It won't. You mark my words, he's going to send another army. So how many of you here are brave enough to say you'll stand up and fight alongside William Wallace when the English king does indeed send another army? Say aye!
Aye.
I'll take you by surprise. I'm going to try it again. Say aye!
Aye.
Much better. Thanks so much for your attention. Do enjoy your time here at the monument. If anyone wants a quick photograph with me before I do it all over again, you're welcome to get one. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
No, no, no,